Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, Andrea, for that lovely introduction. And thank you for your passion, because it is in uniting audiences such as those that are here that we bring about change. So I'm delighted to be before you this morning. It's most certainly my honor and privilege. And to be able to see a table full of legislators and other advocates before us is really what I need to begin to say the things that I need to say this morning. So first, it is indeed my honor and privilege to stand before you this morning to bring you greetings on behalf of the PATMED School District, where I serve as the superintendent for approximately 7,500 students and about 1,500 staff members. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the demographics. We are a most diverse district, and we serve approximately 1,200 second language learners and about 1,700, more than 1,700 special education students and nearly 90 homeless students. We serve students of all races, genders, and nationalities. Some of our students live in abject poverty, while others that we service live in highly educated families with high levels of affluence. Our district truly personifies the need to provide equitable supports to all students. Daily, we strive to meet the students where they are, but we know that we can't strive academically as a district if the students are emotionally depleted. This morning, I've been asked to discuss the importance of providing social and emotional supports to students, and also the challenges that educators are facing and the manner in which we're addressing some of these challenges. This topic is very important and is truly a passion of mine. I look at my role as a servant leader to be the voice for the voiceless that are all around us, all of the children that can't always, as Laura indicated, can't always articulate what's going on within them. How do we create that culture of care that enables us to connect, that enables us to create a sense of belonging and a sense of truly being able to build upon where they are and help them to get where they need to be. My time is limited this morning. If I had a platform where I could speak all day, I could speak all day about this topic. But yet I know my time is limited, so I'm going to try to make the best use of the limited time that I have. With the time that is mine, I've been asked to share some of the challenges, and I thought it might be best to start. I know that earlier a lot of the speakers already spoke generally about some of the challenges that we face, but I thought I would give you a few profiles of children that we are dealing with in our school system, and not just the PATMED School District, but I'm sure that in this body of advocates for children, some of the things that I'm about to share are things that are not foreign to your work. So first profile, a female middle school student with suicidal ideations who, after months of interventions within the school system and in connection with agencies, swallows bleach in an attempt to end her life. These are real stories that we are dealing with. The student was hospitalized 17 times over the course of a school year. Unfortunately, the agencies continue to advise us that there is limited bed space, as was already indicated, and therefore every time that we called to rush her to whatever the local agency is, DASH, or to a hospital, they release her, sometimes the same day, sometimes the next day. It's overwhelming to know that this child needs to be hospitalized, but there's not sufficient social workers, psychologists, or facilities to manage what is going on. So I put that out there for our legislators to know that this is what we're dealing with. Second profile. Boy in second grade living with his single mom knocks frantically on the school doors one morning. He's half dressed and clearly in distress. He lived across the street from one of our elementary schools at the time. As he was trying to get ready for school, he realized that his mother was unresponsive. He runs across the street to the school for help. Sadly, his mom passed away that morning from COVID complications. No brothers, no sisters, and overnight, this little boy has lost his family unit. A middle school female student collapses in one of our bathrooms at the start of the school day. She later reported that she took 24 Tylenols prior to the start of the school day. And my last example is a transgender student who is bullied on social media. He responds by fighting a young lady whose injuries included a concussion. Now, I'm not advocating for any excuses, but those of us who are social workers or mental health providers understand that hurt people hurt people. And the behaviors are a personification of crying out that they don't know how to express. So they express it in bad behavior. And when we talk about, as was indicated in the video, that when children act out, when they cry for help in all these various ways, it sometimes lands as they just need to be disciplined. They just need to be suspended. When they're suspended and you bring them back into the home that is filled with anxiety and stress, it further exacerbates the problem. As gut-wrenching and alarming as these stories may feel, they are all too common, the daily experiences for educators in public schools today. The pandemic merely served to exacerbate an already challenging array of social and emotional learning issues that children were facing. And when our students returned to school in the midst of the pandemic, after experiencing one trauma after another in so many forms, we found that we were not only facing academic gaps, but maturity gaps as well. If you think about it, if a child was in 6th grade in 2019, entering middle school, 2.5 years of their middle school career was not normal. And so we find that those children at all age levels, from K to 12, came in 2 years behind, not only academically, but emotionally. That ended up in a groundswell of behavior issues across districts. And interestingly enough, when the mask mandates, which were a source of stress for any superintendent, were lifted, it seems as though the children were hiding behind the mask. And all of their emotions came out when the mask came off. So those that were hiding their feelings of whatever they were feeling came out in the form of unbelievable behavioral issues on all grade levels. It was quite a challenge, not just for social workers and psychologists, for every teacher, every administrator, every dean, every nurse. The job felt like one that became a 24/7 a day job for all of us if we truly cared about the children. And that's what it was. It was an interruption of everything over the past several years, and we're hopeful that we're getting back to some semblance of normalcy. So in light of all of this that I've shared with you, which is really just a snapshot into the day in the life of what happens when I pray, go to work, and see what happens for the day. What calls am I going to get? What children are in distress? What child might take his life? Because we've experienced that too last year with a 5th grader who saw no hope in his life in spite of the supports and a very supportive family that led to the suicide of a 5th grader in our school district. So in light of that, the question is, what are we doing as a school district? And sometimes we must also remember that we as administrators and teachers in a school system have to be healthy in our minds and spirits in order to project that in the classroom and all around us. Because remember, it's not just the children and their families that have struggled. We have many, many employees that lost loved ones, that are emotionally fragile, and that have experienced suicide. Sometimes we've lost staff members to suicide. And so it's into this daily type of environment that we are coming to serve our population. So what have we done? And why is it important? Well, before I go into a few things that we are doing in our district to truly change the trajectory for our children, I want to impress upon you why this is critical. Because when the mask mandates were lifted across the country last year, we saw mass shootings also increase across the country and across Long Island. There is a correlation between mental health and the profiles of these serial killers or these students that snap and begin to shoot up, and adults that snap. Oftentimes there are signs, and oftentimes it goes back to childhood experiences, a bully in the school, or some unresolved issue, or a lack of understanding that really was rooted in education, in their school environment. So the question of what we do becomes all the more important, because the root of safety issues don't always start with who's carrying a gun or not. It starts with how we're supporting children in the schools to make sure that they're healthy and they grow up stable in their mind and in their spirit, so that that doesn't become the first thing they think of out of a lack of hope and just walking around with hopelessness in their heart. So what are some of the things that we're doing? And I'm going to try to be mindful of our time, but we have a family center that services the entire school community, because some of our children do live in abject poverty. And it is a place where there are social workers, psychologists, centrally located to deal with crisis intervention, to provide WIC support, to steer them in the direction of where they need in terms of some of the agencies, which I will certainly add these agencies to the list of resources to help them, and to provide every single week actual goods to them. We connect with Long Island Harvest, and we give out every single week produce, fresh produce, that those families in need, and there's about 200 of them at least, line up and get fresh produce every day. We need to think beyond what the traditional system looks like in order to meet the needs of our students that are traumatized along with their families. We've created an SEL action plan. I had a vision to hire a director of SEL for our school district, and we've created a number of very creative programs that assist our children's social and emotional needs, K through 12. One of the things that we're very proud of is when we came back to school last year, we assessed all of our children's mental and emotional needs so that we could get a baseline of where they were. That we use to provide the support interventions, because if we know that they're at risk as identified by this assessment that they take, we can identify a tiered approach to supporting their needs, from the classroom all the way to intense interventions. And so what else have we done? We've had professional development for all of our teachers. I recently had the convocation where over 1,000 teachers and other employees were on our field. We had suicide prevention training. Why? Because they need to be able to detect those little things that in Laura's case, someone didn't see. But if they know the child, if they connect with the child, if they understand the child, and the child feels that there is a culture of care and belonging, no matter what they look like, no matter who they identify as, then, and only then, can we meet their academic needs. We have clubs, we have restorative practices. We have updated our code of conduct to embed equitable approaches and restorative approaches to discipline. The goal is not to be punitive, but to teach and restore and bring back into right relationship and to learn a lesson so that they grow and don't repeat the same thing. And when they return to an accepting environment. So teaching our teachers that a restorative approach is what we need in a school system, as opposed to a punitive approach that only feeds the school to prison pipeline, is what we need to show them. And we've been working on that for the past 5 years in our school district to change the mindset of how to address student needs post-pandemic. I could go on and on and on, but at the end of the day, I will say that we are doing many things to address the needs because we truly care collectively as a school system, from the custodians to the bus drivers. We've taught all of them how to create and to embody a culture of care. So the last thing that I will say is last January, as part of our out-of-the-box thinking, we wrote a letter of support for a Mather psychiatric clinic. We were made aware that Mather was granted a statewide healthcare facilities transformation grant to expand its mental health clinic services for adolescents and adults. We were later advised that that clinic would be located in Coram, which we were delighted because it would offer more supports, and we were already struggling to get students to be seen. We were struggling with bed space every day for our children that we know needed, and we thought this would help. So we wrote a letter of support, and we thought we'd be starting in September. And legislators, they told us whether they ran out of money or what, it can't start till January. So once again, we have a void between September and January of how we're going to help the children that are struggling and need the additional supports beyond the level that we can provide. And I'll just close with saying many of you know that last year we tragically lost a 5th grade student to suicide. He was a brilliant student. He was a twin who excelled, and now we're dealing with the twin in our school district and his siblings that remain. He was brilliant. He was athletically inclined. He excelled in music and everything. He even hacked one of our systems. He was brilliant. But yet, there was something, there was a void. The parents did everything. The teachers did everything. We were aware. There was the family connections. And unfortunately, sometimes, in spite of all the best efforts, it's just not enough, but we will never stop trying. He came from the most loving family you can ever imagine. And I'm proud to say that instead of that mom, which she had a right to do, to just sit somewhere and mourn the loss, she is joining with the school system to advocate, to raise awareness, giving me permission to share her story and not just say, let's keep it quiet, because that is the only way that we can raise the importance of our working collectively to change the outcomes for our children who are struggling. So she sat on a panel that I moderated to over 1,000 of our employees. And she was one that sat there to say, we can only change this with advocation, with awareness, with resources. And so I come to you this morning, to our legislators, I thank you for being here. To all of you who serve in this capacity daily, I thank you for being here. To Andrea and all those that work with her, I thank you for your passion, for what you do on a voluntary basis to bring us all together. It is not in vain. And I will most assuredly bring my packet back to my school system and bring my packet back for our trustee who is here to advocate it with our legislative committee. And I will also bring it to the Council of Superintendents because we also have a legislative committee. So you haven't heard the last of us legislators. We're going to come back. So I thank you for this opportunity.